What time is it?
It's time for art!
Second and third grade. Here we are, our last 5 assignments of the fourth 9 weeks. Some of you may have noticed we haven't done our clay project this year. Well, it's one of these last 5 assignments. For the last 5 weeks of art, we are going to be studying animals and their habitats. A habitat is defined as a place where any living organism makes its home. Anything that organism needs to survive can be found in its habitat. Organisms are different, habitats are different. For an animal, its habitat would supply everything that it needs for shelter and food. Today we are going to draw our habitat, and here is a selection of different habitats that you could draw. I'm going to start with a rectangular piece of poster board or tag board, and I'm going to draw an undersea picture. For that, I'll make a clay dolphin in a few weeks. I'm going to start at the bottom of my paper and draw some wiggly lines, draw some seaweed. Behind the 3 blades of grass and the seaweed, I'll draw a squiggly line for a coral or a cave. I like to make a hole in it so it adds some dimension to my picture. I'll draw a shelf, and I'll make a squiggly line down like a cliff, an underwater cliff. That'll show back up again in my hole that I just drew. I'll draw some weird looking undersea plants growing out of that little cliff wall. I'll add some more seaweed on top of that. I'll add another cliff wall underneath that one. On the left-hand side of the paper, I'll draw some more coral, maybe some sea anemones. I'm going to populate the background of this undersea picture with some fish. So let me draw 3 or 4 big fish eyeballs, like a school of fish. And then I'll add the fish bodies around that, add some fins. And that would be great for my undersea habitat. For my next habitat, I'll draw swamplands. And in a few weeks, I'm going to make a clay alligator. I will start with a line in the middle of my paper, and that's going to be where swamp grass grows. Then I will add a dragonfly flying above that. Underneath my swamp grass, I can add some lily pads. Underneath that, maybe a water moccasin swimming through the water. I'll add some ripples in the wake of him swimming. This looks like I'm drawing ripples in the water, but this is the bottom of my cypress tree. I'll draw the trunk coming out of that, going to the top of the paper. I'll add a branch with some moss. I'll add some tiny oval-shaped lily pads to that. Draw the horizon line in the background, add some more tall grass, and just fill in the background with some palm trees. That'll work out great for my swamp habitat. Another habitat that you could draw is the desert. I'm going to start on the bottom of my paper with some very flat-looking rocks. I'll add some stripes and cracks to it. A little smiley face scorpion at the bottom of that. A scorpion's an arachnid, so he needs 8 legs. 2 will have pincher claws. He'll get some shade underneath those rocks. Up at the top of the paper, I'll start with the number 3. I'm going to turn that into the nose of my cow skull. An eye hole and maybe some horns. Add a little crack to it. And now I'm going to draw some more flat rocks. This looks like it's growing out of the skull, but it's not. But I want to add a cactus, add a desert flower, and another cactus growing out of this flat rock right here. Don't forget to add the needles to your cactus. To add distance to this flat 2-dimensional picture, I'm going to draw a tiny cactus in the background. And now all of these cactuses should cross the horizon line. I'll draw the horizon line behind them. And then my last step for this, I will draw a flat top mountain, a mesa, and I will add stripes to that. Horizontal stripes, that'll be fun to color in next time. And that does it for my desert habitat. The desert habitat would be great for a lizard or a snake. The next habitat I'm going to draw would be great for a bear. I'm going to draw the woods or a forest. I'm going to start with a really erratic, crazy looking zigzag line. This will be grass blades, blades of grass. I will draw around that to make a giant boulder. Next, I'm going to draw a vertical oval shape, color that in, and this is going to be the beginning of a log that fell over. I'll fill in the log with some squiggles. I'll add a branch with maybe some leaves growing out of it. And now I'm going to draw tiny little zigzags in the background. That'll be more blades of grass. A horizontal oval, and then fill that in, and that will be just the stump of a tree stump. Add the appropriate squiggles to that. Starting at the halfway point of my paper, I'm going to draw the base of a pine tree, and I am going to fill in the rest of this background with pine trees. And that's going to do it for the forest. In a few weeks, we'll make a bear. You can make it a brown bear or a black bear. That's up to you. We got a few more habitats to go. Next, I'm going to draw a jungle. This would be great for a gorilla. I'm going to start with a really long palm branch, and I'm going to fill this thing up with super long palm fronds coming off of it. I want this to look like a jungle plant. Above that, I'm going to draw some curvy lines, and these will also look like giant palm leaves. Behind that, I'm going to make a big bumpy line, different sized bumps. This is a good way to draw bushes. I'll add more crazy looking zigzags for blades of grass. But growing out of that bush, I'm going to draw a tree with a monkey hanging on it. So I'm going to start with a big tree trunk that goes all the way to the top of the paper. I'm going to have a branch that branches out also to the top of the paper. I'll draw two U-shapes and kind of add some details, color it in loosely. That will be a vine. This vine needs some leaves, so let me add some leaves to it. And then the last thing I'm going to want to do is add a monkey hanging from the branches. I'm going to start with his head, a circle and then a smaller circle inside that. The smaller circle on the inside looks like a smiley face, but it's not. The eyes of the smiley face are actually his nostrils. I will add two more dots for his eyes above that in the big circle, and then I will add monkey ears. Underneath his head, I'll draw a U shape for his body and another tiny circle, and draw a belly button. That'll be his tummy. I'll add legs and feet and a tail, and then the last step will be 4 vertical lines above his head. They go off the paper, and those will be his arms. This way we don't have to worry about his hands. And that'll be it for our jungle habitat that will be the home for our clay gorilla. If you don't like any of those choices, here is an Arctic habitat, which will be great for a penguin. I'm going to start with a floating chunk of ice on the bottom of my paper. That's where my clay penguin will go. I'll add some ripples, and I will add a weird, wavy, bumpy, zigzaggy line across the top. That will be the ice shelf, where all the other penguins are. Let me populate this with some big penguin bodies and some little penguin bodies. I gotta add some feet. I gotta color around their white tummies. Add some beaks, add some eyes, add some wings or flippers. I'll add a mountain in the background, and some puffy clouds in the sky and a sun. And that's it. All you have to do is draw one of these habitats. I can't wait to see what it looks like. See you next time. Bye. Today's pro tip: when you're painting on a vertical wall, you're gonna get drips. There's no avoiding it. I like to play a game where I pretend that the drips are like Missile Command, one of my favorite video games as a kid. Paintbrushes don't come with erasers. That's why your next best friend is a wet rag. Always have a wet rag ready to help you catch and erase your drips. I never start any painting without a wet rag nearby. Boom! Now it's time for some bonus points. Bonus points! You are a living organism. You need shelter and food to survive. Tell me what habitat you live in. See you next week. Bye.